What about AI? Do you see that as a challenge? Do you see it as negative or positive?
It's definitely a threat, and if we don't do anything about it, it's going to be a really bad threat.
Tony, thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You're welcome.
So my first question for you, for anyone that's clicked on the video and don't know who you are, could you explain who you are?
So my name's Tony Moretta, and I'm the CEO of Digital Jersey.
What was your path into digital innovation and leadership? Because I know I've seen your past roles. Obviously, you're the CEO of Digital Jersey. What was your path?
So I actually, my first job after university was working for a bank, and I did quite a few boring jobs in the bank. And I sort of got to a point where I thought I'll treat myself to an interesting job.
Mm-hmm.
And I was quite lucky. I worked for NatWest initially on their graduate training scheme. And one of the benefits of working for a big company is there are lots of other opportunities in different parts of the bank. And actually, I got interested in a part of the bank that was developing smart cards. You know, we're used to now. These are the days before you had chip credit and debit cards, certainly before contactless. And they were developing smart cards, electronic cash. And I thought I'd quite like to sort of get involved in that. That looks interesting. And that was my first role that was in sort of business and product development around technology. And pretty much every role I've done since has been similar in different ways, in different industries, different levels of responsibility. But again, not a techie, because my degree is in actually ancient Greek, ancient history, and Latin.
Right. Okay.
So highly useful and relevant to technology. I didn't set out to do that, but I always had an interest in computers. My dad, somebody said in my team said a lot of tech people. They have a parent something that fools around with technology and gadgets and stuff like that. And my dad was a TV engineer. He fixed TVs. So I was always into technology. I was one of the first people in my school to do a computer studies O-level. It was only later in life, later in the career that I sort of got into the business of technology, so to speak.
And then did you ever think about taking, I don't know what the degree is, but technology and stuff in school? Did you ever think about taking that?
I did. I mean, it was interesting. So I went to, I'm from Liverpool originally. I don't have the accent compared to a lot of Scousers in Jersey. I didn't have a choice of what subjects I did at school. I went to a Catholic grammar school. We still had Christian brothers running the school. So I had to do Latin. I had to do ancient Greek. In my early years in school, I preferred the sciences, but as time went on, I preferred history, languages, and things like that. I really enjoyed computer studies. I had a ZX Spectrum, and I did programming on it and things like that. I even did ancient Greek on a ZX Spectrum and an alphabet and stuff. Okay. So I was into it, but I got some career advice. I didn't really know when I came out of university what I wanted to do jobs-wise, and I got some very good career advice from a friend of a father of a friend, sorry. And he said, if you don't really know what you want to do, get on, in those days, a good graduate training scheme with a big blue chip company and accept all the training they offer you, which I did. And you'll have lots of opportunities around it. And actually, that all worked out.
And I've got favourite role apart from Digital Jersey.
Oh, well, actually, I mean, I know you're being nice saying that, but Digital Jersey is the best job I've ever had. It's the longest job I've ever had for that reason. Certainly, by far best job. I've been very, very lucky actually that I've had a lot of jobs where I was able to sort of live the job. When people talk about work-life balance, they say if you get a job you enjoy, it doesn't feel like work. And I've had a lot of jobs which are really interesting. Running different interesting projects, working with different companies and things like that. And I've been very lucky, so I've had quite a good one. But if I think about the jobs that I've particularly enjoyed, it's been where I've been able to take something from a concept or an idea that I'd had all the way to actual implementation. I mean, we were talking earlier about universities. I had an idea when I first worked on smart cards about giving students in a university one single smart card. It was their ID card. They paid for things. It was their library card, building access card. These were the days before mobile phones, smartphones anyway. And I remember having that idea getting it in through the bank when I was in NatWest, getting it into University of Exeter, which I actually went to, but it was a coincidence. We ended up at the University of Exeter because NatWest had a relationship with them. And I still remember now one of the proudest moments was being there on registration day and us giving cards out to 5,000 students over a couple of days and then walking around and seeing them use it.
Yeah.
It helped that we put free £10 or £5, probably with inflation. It wasn't that they could spend in the bars, but seeing them use it. And likewise, there was a company later on that I was spent about a year getting the big telecoms companies in the UK to agree to work together. We spent a year getting it to the European Commission in Brussels because it sounded a bit anti-competitive. This was a joint venture called Weave, and then launching it. And I thought, well, I've been there from the idea, getting people around the table, getting it cleared, launching it, the brand, and they're and I've had a lot of people in my career saying, why have you never done a startup? And I think it's because I got my entrepreneurial, feeling from being, I hate the word, but people use the word intrapreneur. I was able to push my ideas and develop my ideas into products and services within larger companies. Now, the downside of that is you don't make a huge amount of money if it's really successful. The upside is you don't take the risk, and if you've got a family and a mortgage and things like that. But I got to see my ideas come to life in a big way and with big brands. And I can sort of, I can understand how entrepreneurs feel when their ideas come to life because of that.
And you said Digital Jersey was your favourite role. What drew you to Jersey and Digital Jersey?
So I actually got a phone call from a headhunter.
Okay.
And I remember absolutely vividly, I remember the person I was seeing. I came out of a meeting, I got a phone call, person I didn't know. They told me they were from a headhunter that I did know. And they said, have you heard of Digital Jersey? And I kid you not, because I remember it vividly. My first response was, is it a wearable startup?
Right, okay.
And before they said anything, I said, oh, do you mean the island? And they said, the island. And at that point, I'd only been to Jersey once on business overnight when I worked for NatWest. And I think that was probably looking at potentially, ironically, using Jersey as a test bed for a smart card project, which didn't happen. And I guess for me, it got under my skin a bit as I did the research and I looked into Digital Jersey. Also, the other jobs I was talking to at the moment would have, I've got a career. I would say I've got an eclectic CV that qualifies me for absolutely no job except this one. Because as you have seen, it's in lots of different areas. It's telecoms, online, financial services, broadcasting, digital TV, radio, all sorts. I was going to potentially go back into a job, say, in financial services, which would be one of the areas I'd worked in. Digital Jersey was attractive because it enabled me to use all of my experience because of the breadth of looking at everything digital in Jersey.
And so I've got, what is Digital Jersey's core mission?
So the mission now, we say, is to accelerate Jersey's digital future. And that might sound like a strapline, which it is, but the reason we came up with that is that everywhere in the world will get more digital over time, even Jersey, if you don't do anything about it. But just think of the benefits if Jersey does it more quickly, if it adopts technology more quickly, the benefits for productivity, the benefits for people's lifestyles, quality of life and things like that, efficiency, new businesses and things like that. So we think we can sort of provide a sort of modernization agenda for Jersey using technology, and the whole island will benefit from it.
And how do you think the mission has evolved since you becoming CEO, or do you think they've always had that?
So that's a good question. Digital Jersey did exist for a couple of years before I came along, but like a lot of startups, they didn't really quite know at the beginning where it was going. My predecessor left after less than a year. The chairman of the board took over and ran it, and when I came in, it was a good opportunity to, we didn't use that word at the time, but now you'd say pivot, and say, well, what was Digital Jersey set up for? But what do we actually need to do? It was set up really to diversify the economy. And it was set up by government because after the sort of financial crisis of 2008, people were very worried that Jersey was very dependent on the finance industry, and they were very worried what would happen to the finance industry after that. As it turns out, Jersey was very resilient, our finance industry, but they didn't know that at the time. and they thought, well, if we diversify the economy, we need to find another high value industry, an industry that will pay good salaries, that people will pay tax on. And Digital Jersey's original mission was really to diversify the economy, was to create a digital sector of the economy as an extra pillar of the economy alongside financial services, tourism, agriculture. And it was going out to try and attract companies to Jersey, looking at areas that Jersey could grow, like e-gaming, for example, at the time was a very big one. And when I came in, I looked at, well, how had it succeeded at that? I worked closely with government and said, well, actually, you're expecting this organisation to do all the policy and all sorts of areas like that. So we agreed government actually would set up a digital policy unit within government to look at what government should do, like regulation, legislation. And Digital Jersey then starts to focus on, well, actually, maybe we need to build the foundations for this new digital industry. And so in the early years, from when I was here, you saw us produce things like the digital skills strategy, the digital health strategy, smart island strategy, an immigration strategy in terms of skills that we need here. And we also did some work in very early days, working with the KPMG team at the time, to say what are the areas, what are the clusters that Jersey could actually be quite big in. And initially, and we've worked with these quite a few years after, we looked at fintech, financial services. We're an international finance center. We've got a right to play, and we've had some very successful startups there. IoT, Internet of Things, telecoms. You have quite a lot of telecoms in Jersey, quite advanced, people like JT and Shaw, etc. And digital health, which we went into. Now, I'd say where we've changed over the years and where we've got to now, we sort of summarize our areas of focus to 3 pillars. Because one of the problems we've always found is because we do so many different things in so many different areas, quite hard to communicate. You can't communicate in one line what we do. Whereas some areas, like Visit Jersey, you can say it's to attract tourists to Jersey, to promote Jersey as a holiday destination. So now we focus on sort of 3 pillars, one of which is building a digital industry. And that is how we help local companies grow, thrive, get business locally or export, help startups be created, help companies access the right level, the right sort of support they need, no matter what their size, attract new companies to Jersey, relocations, running the hub. The way we actually structure ourselves now, and our 3 main areas of focus are building a digital industry. So how do we help local companies, digital companies, grow, thrive, succeed, whether they're existing companies or startups, give them what they need to get new business locally or off island. How do we, and part of that is running the hub, running, the office, giving them office space, all sorts of services, helping them run events. Also, we try and attract companies here. So we do relocations. So companies will come to us who want to move to Jersey. We'll work with government on getting them a license and bring them in. So that's about growing the digital sector of the economy. The second pillar is what we call innovation, which is really about how you help the rest of Jersey use technology, other economic sectors, whether that's agriculture, whether that's financial services, whether that's tourism. And we call that innovation. But as I said, if you think of the digital industry as a vertical sector in the economy, this is really the horizontal across all the economy. So, and within there, we're just about to publish an agri-tech roadmap for how agriculture can use it. We've done trials with drones and sensors for Jersey Royals, with the Jersey Dairy, etc. We've developed things like data trust, which is how you can take trusts that we've done in financial services and apply them to the world of data. We've got Impact Jersey that you'll know about, which is about grants for technology projects that will help Jersey address its challenges, whether they're economic, social, or environmental. So a whole range of things. And then the third area is skills. And that is, how do we help individuals, businesses, schools as well, with things like the F1 in Schools initiative? How do we help them get the digital skills they need to do their existing jobs, get new jobs, build new businesses and things like that? So it really is industry, innovation, and skills.
Okay. So when you're talking about purpose of Digital Jersey, their mission, and what services they offer for, say, like startups, and the amount of people that you work with, the amount of companies you work with, what are the biggest challenges do you think Jersey are facing in becoming a leading digital hub? You mentioned the hub.
So we have some structural challenges. We're a small place. We're a small place, relatively full employment. So lots of people have jobs. We have high cost of living, nice place, whatever. So lots of advantages, but lots of challenges. And because we're a small place, we miss some of the institutions. We don't have a university, for example, locally. I mean, obviously we have Highlands and University College Jersey in relationship. We have a brain drain. A lot of people don't do what you do and don't stay in Jersey to get their degree. And that's a challenge. So how do we bring people back? How do we attract different people here? So I think talent and skills are a big challenge. It's not an easy place to get the sort of big companies, etc. And really, one of the things Digital Jersey can do is connect people into the wider world, have relationships with the organisations and institutions we don't have in Jersey, or help emulate some of those. You know, if you're in the UK, you've got organisations like Innovate UK and Tech UK and the Digital Catapults and regionals, and we work closely with them and understand how they work, but also how we can offer those sort of services here. And we have some great advantages. I mean, we're number one or number two in the world. We vary between the two for broadband speeds. We've got some amazing digital infrastructure. You know, it's a great place to live, which is attractive to people, individuals, families, things like that. We are very business friendly in Jersey with some of our taxes and our other laws and the support from government. We're a great place to test products because we're a great sandbox, as we call it, Sandbox Jersey, because we've got our own regulators, our own institutions and things like that. But we're a small place. And if you look at how technology is developed around the world, where it's developed, Silicon Valley, it's developed a lot around places where they have, lots of computer science graduates, for example, lots of people like that. And we don't have that. And we have to think, how do we actually compensate for that? And also, where do we specialize? So fintech is a great example. We are a leading international finance center, and people see Jersey as a finance center. We have credibility in that sector. And so if you talk about a product for digital identity, for example, that works in Jersey and is approved by the regulator here, that's a great passport out to the rest of the world and other finance centers. Data trusts, for example, are a good example of that, in the sense that the rest of the world knows Jersey is a great place to set up trusts, where there's a lot of expertise, well-regulated, skills of the law firms and the trust companies. And can we translate that into adjacent areas like data rather than just wealth, for example? So it's really trying to, I always talk about what's our right to play, because somebody would say, well, why would we go to Jersey for that? Whereas if it's something like fintech, I get it. Jersey's an international finance center. They have leading banks, law firms, trust companies. I get that. I absolutely get it.
And then what about AI? Do you see that as a challenge? Does you and Digital Jersey see it as a negative or a positive?
Oh, well, it's potentially both. We could do a whole podcast on this subject. And interestingly enough, I spent most of this week with our advisor on this subject, Professor Alan Brown. He's, amongst other roles, is Professor of Digital Economy at the University of Exeter Business School.
Okay.
I've said this a few times recently in the media and with government, etc. AI is a threat and an opportunity for Jersey. It's definitely a threat. And if we don't do anything about it, it's going to be a really bad threat. And people won't say this around the world when they talk about AI, but jobs will be affected. And not necessarily just affected in the way people think. As I said to someone the other day, this isn't just about AI taking jobs in Jersey directly, but it's about if our competitors, other jurisdictions, use AI well and we don't, and they're more productive, they provide better quality of service at a cheaper price, we'll lose business. So you'll have heard lots of people saying AI might not take your job, but somebody else using AI might.
Yeah.
And I would say another jurisdiction using AI might take our business away from us if we don't do it. So it's definitely a threat. But like a lot of threats, if you're prepared for it. Having said that, I think there's a fantastic opportunity for Jersey. If you think about what Jersey is trying to do, which I often say is trying to have our cake and eat it. We want economic growth. but we don't want to grow the population.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why our minister is called the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. It's not just the green side of things. It's actually how do we grow it sustainably for Jersey, grow the economy. So if we can get more business with less people, that sounds like a great opportunity for Jersey. But it's only an opportunity if we do something about it, if we embrace it. And we are working with external advisors, like I've just said, Professor Alan Brown, working with local stakeholders like government, obviously, Jersey Finance, our sister agency, Institute of Directors, a number of other organisations, regulators, etc., and the Jersey AI Forum, which was set up recently. We've got some fairly advanced AI practitioners here to develop an AI plan for Jersey. But what's really important is AI is changing all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you can't write a 100-page strategy document and say, great, that's going to do us for the next 5 years, and then we'll review it in 5 years and then do another one in 10 years or whatever. You can't do that. So what we're looking at the moment is what are the objectives around AI? And those objectives are similar objectives to the ones we've had in other areas. So how do we enhance the competitiveness of our finance industry? How do we be more efficient at delivering government services, for example? Skills are a big part of that. How do we make sure we have a skilled workforce? How do we implement AI responsibly in Jersey? Because responsibly is help people with the transition to the jobs. Because we can't. Somebody else coined this the other day. I said to somebody, we can't hold back the tide. In Jersey, there are some people who think we can on Twitter. But we can't hold back the tide. But maybe we can teach people to surf on it, is what somebody else said. And I thought that's quite a nice Jersey analogy. We need to help companies know which AI tools to use. We need to have the right regulations and legislation to support that, the right codes of conduct and codes of practice, which we're very good at anyway in Jersey around things like the finance industry. But I think really importantly, we have to give the workforce the skills to use AI so that they can get better jobs, keep their jobs, get better jobs. So I think it is a huge threat, and people really need to understand that, yes, there's some hype around AI, but things that you think are hype around AI and don't really do what they say they do, that can change in days. You can suddenly, it's crap at doing that. But actually, a couple of days later, there's a new upgraded version. It's brilliant. You look at video animation and automated podcasts. In the early days, it looked awful, and very, very quickly, it got very, very good. And so this stuff is changing terrifyingly quickly. So we've got to understand it. We've got to have a plan, and we've got to embrace it. We've absolutely got to embrace it, because if we do embrace it, it could be brilliant. There is no other way of improving outcomes and efficiency at the same time than investing in technology. And I think AI, in many ways, is an evolution of digital transformation that we've got to go through anyway. It's just a really quick acceleration of that.
You speaking about AI with podcasts, I listened to a podcast yesterday and they were saying they think, so with YouTube and Spotify, obviously with podcasts on them platforms, they think 50% of it in a few years will be AI. And one of my mates, he's into podcasts, and he didn't realize it was an AI voice, and now podcasts are actually doing AI people.
Well, it's not just podcasts. We have Professor Dame Wendy Hall on our board, and she is a leading voice in the development of AI historically and even now, and is the UN representative on the UN AI advisory panel, the UK representative on the UN AI advisory panel, and she co-wrote a previous AI strategy for the UK government. And she said in only a few years, about 98 people are forecasting potentially about 98% of the content on the internet will be AI generated.
Right, okay.
And that's a bit scary because you don't know what's true.
Yeah.
And you talked earlier on about when I got into computers a long time ago, back in 1982, 1980 to 1984. There used to be an expression which is coming back now, which was GIGO, which is garbage in, garbage out.
Okay.
And that's the challenge with AI. If you put wrong data in, you're going to get wrong answers. But how do you know that?
Yeah.
how do you know? So there's a lot of stuff to do there, but I think the areas that we concentrate on is how AI can really do things that currently humans do. And if you think about a lot of the stuff we do in Jersey in finance, for example, there's a lot of admin that AI can do. And if we don't do anything about it, AI will just replace people. But if we give people skills to use AI and specialize in it and do new jobs and add extra value and get more business, then that's going to be great for everyone.
I think with like platforms like, you know, ChatGPT, Grok, and platforms like that, I think it's only going to develop even more over the years. Because if you think you submit questions into ChatGPT or Grok, it's developing, understanding
the speed. I mean, I think the challenge for leaders anywhere now is how to keep up. And the reality is you can't keep up on all the technical, but you have to find a way of keeping up on what the art of the possible is, so that you can work with your teams and know what steer your business. And it's funny you talk about podcast. I've only fairly recently got into working at podcasts, and the reason I've done it is the only way I will get enough time in the day is if I'm trying to get my steps in of an evening. I listen to a podcast, and you know, I've got so many friends and colleagues that will recommend podcasts about AI. I'd recommend the Google DeepMind podcast series is very good. Lots of others. And I'd recommend people watch what is happening from the big tech companies. I don't know whether you've seen the Google I/O annual event. I mean, I have to say that was both amazing and utterly terrifying. I mean, I sat there watching the highlights, and I was messaging people in my team and said, "This is it." But it was initiative after initiative after initiative in health and finance and devices and all of this stuff. It is terrifying. That's one company with one update. And there are so many different tools. And I would say to a lot of people, you can't hope to know everything that's going on. You've got to rely on say, the tech people in your organization to really do that. But my advice is always to have an intellectual curiosity. Be interested in this stuff and learn about it and listen to stuff and immerse yourself a bit. Ask the right questions, which is what AI is about. Not about having the right answer. It's about asking the right questions. But that's going to be a real challenge. You know, I talk to leaders in all sorts of areas of the economy in Jersey, and they struggle to know what they should be doing, what they should be doing within their company, what they themselves should be using in tools. And it's a challenge.
So I think we could talk about AI for
maybe another podcast.
Maybe another podcast. But I've got some questions about your role and advice for others, if that's okay. So what skills do you think someone needs to have or develop to follow a similar path like yourself?
That's a good question. And you hear a lot of people in the education system talking about soft skills. And I think that is really key. I think it is having that intellectual curiosity, wanting to learn about new things. I think it is, especially these days, it is realizing that you always have to be learning. This is not like the old days where you could, you know, go to school, go to university perhaps, or do a course at work, and then just do the same thing using the same tools. You have to constantly be learning. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to keep your job realistically. You're not going to get career opportunities. So I think it is that culture of learning, soft skills, problem solving. I talked earlier on about accepting all of the courses that NatWest Bank offered to me. And I remember one of the things I still remember now, bearing in mind this is early 90s I'm talking about, which you weren't born then, were you? Let's not go there. Called creative problem solving. So those sort of skills, problem solving, data skills, really important. And being able to use some of the basic tools, just learning how to use. You talk about, you know, prompt engineering, learning some of the new skills we need. But I think overall it is about problem solving. It is about having curiosity. It is about acquiring knowledge constantly, no matter what no matter what you're studying in school or a degree, you know, it doesn't matter what the subject is, you're learning some of those skills anyway. I think the trick is to keep learning and keep carrying on. and trying out different things. And one thing that people have available to them now that they didn't have before is a huge wealth of online knowledge and learning, and play with things. Back to what I said about intellectual curiosity, just play with things, ask advice. Actually, that's a really good skill. I wish someone had said that to me more in the early days, but actually a big part of success is spotting people that know things you don't and building relationships with them and ask their advice. I don't think a day goes by, even in my job, where I'm not grabbing a coffee with somebody or messaging somebody to ask their advice on something, because there are lots of people who know things I don't, or they've had an experience I don't. You know, even today I had a quandary about something, and I went to see a very successful business person in Jersey who I've got a good relationship with, and I said, what do you think? And they gave me some really good advice. And it doesn't matter what level you are, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can get help.
And then I've got another question. What does your typical working day look like as a CEO of Digital Jersey?
Oh, okay. Lots of meetings.
Yeah.
Lots of meetings, 7-8 hours. I mean, look, that's great. It's because most of my job is sort of connecting things. It can be, you know, if you're talking about a Monday, it can be a team meeting, a meeting with my heads of department, a meeting with the wider team, making sure we all know what everyone else is working on. We all know where we can help. I have typically on a day, I will have one-to-ones with some of my team to find out what they're doing. Mostly, you know, to see if I can help on anything and where they can use me to knock down barriers. Lots of meetings with government. But that's good. Okay. I mean, you know, I come meeting earlier on with the health minister and the health CIO about a digital health delivery group we have. Might be working with the digital economy team within government. Meetings with members. Meetings with, I mean, this week, for example, working with Professor Alan Brown, we've been meeting key stakeholders. We've been meeting with Jersey Finance, people in the finance industry, the regulators, the IOD, government again. And it might sound all these different meetings, but it's advancing all the different areas of the agenda I talked about. It can be talking to the education department about what we're doing about skills and skills courses. It can be giving advice to a particular member. It could be doing podcasts for hard-faced people that send you an email and say, "Will you please do a podcast?" And this is, you know, but that's what I love about it, because it's never a dull moment. And the great thing is, you know, people don't always realize there are some really great people in Jersey doing really interesting things. And going back to AI, one of the things I've seen recently is I've joined in more as an observer, to be honest, on a course that some people are running called Let's Build AI. And first of all, we've got some great teachers here to help people learn about AI. But I've been really impressed with the number and the diversity of people on the course. And when I say diversity, that's gender, that's nationality, that's industry, that's you know, people from finance, people from hospitality, people from government, and they want to learn, and they've got problems, and they think AI can help them with, and we match them up with people who can show them how to use it. And that's one of the things I really like about what we do at DJ is we can give advice if we have it ourselves, but we can connect people up with people who can help locally, off island, people who've got experience or ideas we've not got, and it's all about building momentum towards that mission of you know, building the digital industry, helping all parts of Jersey use technology to innovate, or growing people's digital skills.
And then I've got biggest mistakes you made early on in your career.
Oh, that's a really interesting question. And the one thing I'd say is things that you quite often think are mistakes at the time, when you look back, when you're as old as I am and you look back over the years and you think, actually, at the time I wasn't happy about it. I'll give you an example. I left a job where I'd been in the industry and in my sort of role for about 5 years. And I hadn't necessarily appreciated, you know, quite, because I'd been there for 5 years. I was an expert in my field. I would go around Europe speaking at conferences on it. I was confident. I was comfortable. But but I wanted, that was in financial services, and it was the late 90s, and I wanted to get into the dot-com boom. Then it was the bubble, then it burst, then it was back to dot-com again. And I wanted to get into this, so I went into a completely new area. I went from financial services to broadcasting and digital TV and interactive TV. And my first few months of that were difficult because it was a completely new industry.
Different, yeah.
And I didn't have the background, I didn't have the confidence, I didn't have the position. And at the time, and for a while after it, I thought, did I make a mistake making that move? But years later, I look back and I thought, you know what, that's actually the best thing I did, because it I thought it was a mistake because I got out of my comfort zone. Now, with the benefit of experience, you think, well, actually, that's quite good. Sometimes the breakthroughs happen when we do get out of our comfort zone. So I'd say to a lot of people, there are lots of things at the time I thought were mistakes. And look, I would have made mistakes. I put my foot in it. People who know me well would think I probably made a comment I shouldn't have made. I was a bit too direct. Sometimes I would look back at my career and say maybe I should have been a bit more ruthless. Sometimes. I think people get into positions where they could do something which is good for the bottom line, but might hurt someone, internal or externally. I've always been quite principled.
Yeah.
And I'm quite glad I'm quite principled, but there are times when I've thought I paid a price for being principled. I've made the wrong move. I've backed the wrong thing. I've developed the wrong. But you learn from these things, and it is true. You don't hear people say it as much these days. But it is true that you do learn more from your mistakes. You do learn more from your mistakes than your successes. If I look, I've been with companies, and it would work for people. Learn with startups. You learn from failures. I've been in big companies that have failed, and actually having been there and seeing why they failed, they didn't get the product proposition right. Yeah, they didn't do the customer research properly. They were arrogant in terms of the way they treated partners or whatever. And that's actually quite useful observing that. So I was in a company that went bust. Yeah. And I lost my job, as my colleagues lost my jobs. But I used that knowledge and I learned from it. And I always said, I went in for a job. I talked about NatWest and different jobs I was able to go into. I went into a job that I thought I'd probably hate, and I thought I probably wouldn't be very good at. And I was right. I hated it. Yeah. It was the most unpleasant year of my career. But I went into it for a reason. I went into it because I thought I could learn things that I didn't know. And I was right about that as well. And there were times in that year where I thought, I wish I'd not done this. I've gone from a job I really enjoyed and I was good at, and I was well perceived, to a job that's really difficult. But at the end of that year or so in that job, I thought, do you know what? I've learned stuff. And I hadn't quite realized how much I'd learned. You learn by osmosis. You learn by being in that environment. So I'd say to a lot of people, actually make mistakes. Don't be scared to make mistakes, because you'll learn from them. And it might be painful at the time, but you'll look back. And I often say to people, I helped one of my old team members recently with this advice. They said, when I look back on my career, I regret the things I didn't do and not the things I did do. So my advice to a lot of people is have the confidence, have the courage of your convictions, have the confidence. If you've got a good idea, if you've got a strong urge to do something, try it out. And you know what? If you mess it up, as long as nobody gets hurt, you pick yourself up and you learn from that. You do something out, and you see that with startups. Yeah, most of the people that have successful startups didn't do it the first time. Yeah, it was second or third time. And when I talk to people, I do talk to people about mistakes they've made, but you want to make sure people have learned from those.
And you said to me before you've been the CEO of Digital Jersey for 10 years.
Nearly, not quite.
Nearly 10 years. In your opinion, what kind of businesses do you think Jersey needs more of?
So I've talked earlier on about things we don't have in Jersey. We're a small place, and we're not a big market locally. But it's really interesting. You might have seen that we've built a strong relationship with Estonia. We've had the Estonian ambassador over. Yeah. And one of the things that always struck me about the Estonians is they say they've been very successful with digital. They've got the highest number of unicorns per capita. Right. By the way, I normally hate using the word unicorn because the key fact about unicorns is not that they're rare, it's that they don't exist.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, that's the word we use in industry. But Estonia's got a lot of unions. So Skype was an Estonian company. Lots of other companies like Wise is an Estonian company. And they've got a lot of software as a service type businesses that have gone out around the world. And in Estonia, they said, because we're only a small country, I mean, they're big compared with us, but they're only 1.2 million people. So as a European country, they're a small country. So we haven't got a big enough market. So we need to build things that we sell elsewhere. So that's what I think we could do with more companies. We've got some great examples. We got a great tech entrepreneur in Jersey who's also we're fortunate enough to have on our board, Tom Hackwell. You come across him, and he set up a company called Pinpoint, which is HR recruitment software. I'm sure it's more than that if he's listening. But most of his business isn't in Jersey. Most of it's in the US or around Europe. Okay. And we need those businesses that export. Like Estonia, we're a small place. And so it's great to have companies that sell their services and help locally. We absolutely need those, particularly to help the finance industry do what they do. But if I was to say the businesses we need more businesses like Pinpoint. There's somebody I spoke to today said, wouldn't it be great if we could have a unicorn farm in Jersey? And that's difficult, but we've seen with companies like Pinpoint, with other companies we've had in the past like WorldPay, these companies can start anywhere, and we have to make sure we support them, and we have to make sure we're the sort of place where they will stay, and they find people they can employ and grow. Because sometimes when companies grow, they outgrow Jersey because they can't find the people to work here. Yeah. And we have to help those companies keep a presence here, but help them export to the rest of the world, because that, our finance industry is the size it is, not because it's just serving 100,000 people living in Jersey. Yeah. It's serving a global business. And we need to do that with digital.
And then I've got another question. What advice would you give for young people wanting to make an impact on the island here in Jersey?
That's an interesting question. In many ways, it's easier to have an impact in a small place. But what I would say, young people will get older people say, "Oh, you can do anything, do it." I think I would say, pick something specific. Pick something you are really passionate about, whether that is a business, whether that's a charity, whether that's an element of island life. Pick one specific thing, learn about it, go and talk to people who... that's a good thing about Jersey. Jersey is an easy place to network, an easy place to go and find the right people. Yeah. Talk to people in that area, ask their advice on how you can get involved and follow that advice. And don't try and boil the ocean, the expression. Don't try to do everything at once. Pick something specific, pick something you can learn about and make a difference in, and then go and do it, and then build on it.
And then, so at the end of each episode, we have a tradition on the podcast where viewers submit their questions via Slido. So I've got one Slido question here. Is becoming the CEO of Digital Jersey what you expected it to be?
Oh, yes and no. Broadly, a lot of it is what I expect it to be in terms of the type of role and type of things we do. It surpassed my expectations in terms of how many interesting things we've been able to do, and how much is going on in Jersey. I remember when I'd been in Jersey for a year or so, friends of mine in the UK said, "Is there enough to do in Jersey?" And I always say it's the best job I've ever had so far, but it's also the worst work-life balance I've ever had in my career. But I don't mind that because it's not wasting time on a commute. It's fascinating events and discussions and projects. And I think what always surprises people when they come to Jersey is how much is going on here. And it's great to be part of that.
And then last question, best and worst thing about your role here at Digital Jersey?
Oh, that's one we talk about a lot, but because they're the same. Okay. And the best thing is we get to do so many different interesting things. And the worst thing is we have so many things to do. And so the biggest challenge is prioritizing. So there's loads of interesting things we do. I'm really lucky. I've got a fantastic team that are passionate about what they do. You know, if you'd just been in the hub, you'd have seen them bringing the teachers in about running the next F1 in schools and stuff like that. And the person who's leading it, a young woman who was only in a Jersey school as a pupil, probably about 5-6 years ago. So there's so much stuff to do, but that quite often there's a lot to do. There is a lot to do in Jersey. And the challenge is to make sure we're trying to focus on the right things to do and the most important things to do. And we try and get that right, like everyone else in their jobs day to day and their personal lives. You don't always get it right, but you have to try.
Okay. And that's all my questions for you. I want to say thank you. I know you said you got a lot of meetings day to day. I know you're
it's
really
my
busy.
last one of the day.
Yeah, really busy. So thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. It's been a pleasure.
Really appreciate it.